Are atheists dishonest? Well, not as far as I can tell, and I can really only speak for myself, but what do I know, right? After all, the religious haven't told us what's really going on, at least from their perspective, and, well, at least from their perspective, they're always right, right? Just ask them. So let's look at another one of those videos and point out everywhere that it's wrong, which is, a lot. So here we go. This comes from a channel called Om Seth, and I don't know if Seth is this guy's name or what, so I'm not going to refer to him as anything but that guy or whatever. He wants to tell atheists that we're not being honest with ourselves, mostly because we disagree with him and we live in the real world. Anybody who disagrees with the religious has to be wrong because they say so. But that's not exactly how this works, is it? So let's dive right in.
What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be talking about how atheists aren't honest with themselves and how their worldview is not consistent.
And I'm just going to tear everything you have to say apart, and I have no idea what it is you're even going to say. Now, I will point out off the bat that this guy has disabled his ratings because I think he knows that religious videos tend to get trashed for their stupidity. Granted, he didn't close comments, and for a tiny channel, the atheists are out in force, trashing absolutely everything he said in the comments, so if you want to go read that, that's kind of fun. I did kind of scroll through, and there's only one comment that I saw that he's even bothered to respond to, at least as far as I can tell. Maybe by the time this video hits the channel, that might have changed. I don't know. If you go and look, let everybody know how it looks down in the comments if anything looks interesting. But I really wouldn't be holding my breath.
So let's get into it. So, on an atheistic worldview,
there is no atheistic worldview. There is absolutely no view of reality that you can derive solely from I don't believe your claims. Remember, that's all atheism is. You have not justified your claims to my satisfaction. Therefore, I don't believe you. Besides, I don't have a worldview. Say that to the religious and watch their jaws drop. They have no idea how to respond to that. Yes, you do. No, I don't. There is absolutely nothing that I presume about reality other than that there is a reality to begin with, and that's something that absolutely everybody else has to do because of the problem of hard solipsism, so it's nothing unique or out of the ordinary. Beyond that, I just look at the evidence. The world is what the world appears to be. Now, is that an assumption? Maybe, but it's baked into the original assumption, and again, absolutely everybody does it. So that's not a worldview in and of itself. My view of the world doesn't come from atheism. My atheism comes from my view of the world. So this would never fly with me, but we've got to give this guy more than 10 seconds, so I guess let's get back to it.
There is no real meaning to life. There's no purpose to life. It's just complete nihilism because, we're just bags of meat. Something exploded 14, 15, however many billion years ago it was.
That was a lot of absurd misconceptions and errors packed into a very short space, wasn't it? No wonder this guy is getting trashed. There is no meaning to life. No inherent meaning anyhow. You can certainly give yourself meaning and purpose, and most people do. I will never understand how these people can just assert that if you don't have a purpose imposed on you from the outside, that it just can't be valid or worthwhile. I think that says a lot of really negative things about them and their outlook on reality. And no, the Big Bang wasn't an explosion. It was an expansion. There is a difference. I have no idea why the religious are so absurdly ignorant about pretty much everything. How can they not understand this, especially after so many times being corrected? Oh, right, they don't care. They live in their own pathetic little echo chambers where everyone tells them that they're absolutely right, and the second that they step foot outside, they get trounced because everything the echo chamber has been telling them is laughably wrong. And they can't handle that, which is why they get on YouTube and make videos only for other theists, without the understanding that anybody can come by and watch their drivel and point and laugh, and they just get mad. They're not making this stuff for us. They just can't figure out that they're not inside their own little echo chamber anymore where only their side can watch. You know, reality sucks, doesn't it? Too bad.
And here we are now. And that just doesn't work. And then they still say that we can make up our own meaning. We can have subjective meaning.
And we can, and we do. What's the problem with that? Oh, right, it's not emotionally comforting enough. That goes against all the lies that have been shoveled into their heads since before they could take 2 steps. This is what happens when you're brainwashed. It's not pretty, is it?
But that doesn't make any sense, because a lot of these atheists, they say, we need to follow the evidence, we need to seek the truth. And I agree that we need to follow evidence and seek the truth. But they're saying that, and then they're not seeking the truth because they're not being honest with themselves. And they're saying, okay, we should just make up our own meaning to make ourselves feel better about life.
Wow, this guy has problems, so let's try to help him. Not everything out there is capital T truth. Your favorite flavor of ice cream isn't true. It's subjective. It's what you personally like for your own reasons, and it will likely change many times in your life as you have more experiences. There is no evidence for your favorite flavor of ice cream. You just like what you like. Otherwise, your purpose is just something that you chose for yourself. It's what you decide to go out and do with yourself while you're here, and likewise, it may change many times in your life. When I was a really, really little kid, I told my mother that when I grew up, I wanted to be either Superman or a garbage man, mostly because I think they got to ride around in those big trucks. This is not where I ended up, and in fact, my path changed multiple times as I got new information and had new experiences and refined my tastes and interests. Nobody got to tell me what I had to be. I made that decision for myself. 50 years ago, I could never have imagined where I'd be today. 30 years ago, I probably couldn't, at least not with any specificity. I am where I am now because that's where life took me. That's how reality actually works. And I know that's scary for a lot of people, but too bad. Having something imposed on you because it's easier than risking doing something wrong is childish. That's what happens to you when you are a child. Your parents tell you what to do. Now that you're an adult, you need to grow the hell up and deal with it. I don't think these people know how to grow up. That's just sad.
But that's not being honest with yourself, and that's not being truthful. We should be truthful. And the atheists that are truthful are the ones that admit that on their worldview, it's just complete nihilism, like Friedrich Nietzsche. At least Friedrich Nietzsche admitted that there is no objective meaning, there is no objective morality. We're just kind of just here, and it's completely meaningless. It's just a meaningless existence.
That is not what nihilism is. Nihilism is the position that there can be no meaning, no purpose, not even what you find for yourself, which is quite different than what he claimed before. If you invent your own meaning and purpose for your life, then you're not a nihilist. Now, I suppose it depends on exactly how you're using the word, since in some philosophical circles, it refers to extreme skepticism, maintaining that nothing in the world has a real existence, which I guess puts it a little closer to solipsism than anything else. And I don't know of any atheists who actually think that, but this is really kind of the problem, right? We see this with the religious all the time. They just make up definitions for words so they can attach those labels to other people against their will so that they can feel better about the things that they personally take on faith. And that is not intellectually honest, but I guess, what can we expect?
And modern day atheists, a lot of atheists nowadays just kind of lie to themselves and tell themselves, oh no, it's okay, we can make our own meaning, we can still have meaning, we can still live a good life, but we can still have hope for the future or whatever. But on your worldview, you can't.
The whole worldview thing aside, we seem to be doing just fine. I know this is hard for a lot of people to understand, but you can't tell me what I can and I can't do or how I have to think. That's a very religious idea, but it doesn't apply in the real world. This comes down to them wanting everyone to be just like they are, and we're not. I don't need an imposed purpose or meaning in my life. I have a great life. I've got a better life than this guy does, clearly. I can say that because obviously this guy doesn't own his own home, or at least I don't think so. He doesn't have a long-term career that he loves. He hasn't been married to the same wonderful woman for more than 30 years. He doesn't have 2 very successful kids. I mean, hell, this guy looks like he's hardly out of diapers. So, given my own personal subjective take on it, and I grant that's all that it is, I'd say that I'm in a lot better position in life than he is. Maybe than he will ever be. We don't know what the future holds. You can't tell me that I'm not being honest, because I absolutely am. I don't need your imaginary God to go out and do any of the things that I've done. And I think that really bugs these people to see people who are successful who do it without their imaginary friends.
Because there is nothing objective about life. Everything is subjective. There's nothing to live for, really. There isn't even any point to anything, really, because it's nothing, really. Everything has no purpose.
I know I've said it before, but this guy has some serious problems. He does not understand the world that he actually lives in, and that's not really much of a surprise either. A lot of theists don't. They are terrified of reality. They are terrified that they're not special creations, watched over by an imaginary invisible sky daddy who has a plan for their life and is going to whisk them away to eternal happiness after they die because they're just so awesome. But that's not you. I know you want it to be you, but it's not. That's not the world. I know you like the idea, but it's not. So they just sit around and complain that other people are raining on their parade when their parade isn't even real. Their emperor is not only naked, he's imaginary. They're wasting the only life that they've got on a lie because they aren't mature enough to figure out how the world actually is. And then they say, we've got problems. Nope, it's you. It's always been you.
And they also say things like that one of the most common arguments for atheists is the argument of evil. And they say evil exists, therefore God isn't real, because why would God allow evil to happen? But they're assuming that there's a such thing as objective evil and objective good, and they have no way of proving that on their worldview.
No, we're actually not. There is no objective good or evil. Good and evil are just things that humans have labeled that way because we either like them or we don't. Those definitions actually change over time for a lot of things. There was a time when slavery was seen as good by many. Now that's largely not true. This is what happens when these people aren't aware of reality. They can't look at history or culture and realize what's actually going on. And to be fair, it's not just the religious. There are other groups that have the same problem. The problem of evil only shows that the made-up characteristics that a lot of theists staple onto their gods, they're incoherent based on what we see in the world today. Of course, trying to explain that to this guy is probably a waste of time because he's not an intellectual. He's not at that point in his life where he could even remotely begin to understand. The religious are intellectually and rationally stunted, and I think most of us are going to agree with that. So, why is that a good thing again? Because they all seem to think that it is.
All right, so that's the problem. Like they say, oh, suffering is bad. Why is suffering bad?
Because we don't want to suffer. Because we don't enjoy suffering, and we've therefore decided that suffering is something that we shouldn't want for ourselves or for others, because we can recognize ourselves in other people. This is one of those questions where you look at them like,
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
are you serious? Do you need some magical sky wizard to not understand why people don't want to suffer? And I've asked a couple of theists that, and apparently, at least for some of them, they do. Do you like to be hungry? Do you need some book of mythology to tell you that you shouldn't like being hungry? Are you really that stupid? And sadly, the fact is, for a lot of them, that absolutely, yes, they are.
Who says it's bad?
Almost everyone. Now, to be fair, a masochist might disagree, although probably not without exception. They probably don't want to just be kicked at random on the street, although I guess really who knows. This guy really isn't that bright, is he? Although that's not exactly a surprise.
Why is suffering bad? And they say, okay, if things benefit society, it's good, and if it makes people suffer, it's bad. What is benefiting? What is beneficial? What is good? What is bad? They just go in circles, and they can't answer it. They can't answer what's good and bad.
Because it's all subjective. This is exactly why the people who say, well, if it benefits human well-being, then it's good. Great. Now define human well-being in a way that isn't hopelessly subjective. Good luck. And even if you could do that, because different people are going to have different takes on what constitutes well-being, then you're still going to have an endless disagreement over what people can do to implement it. Matt Dillahunty says that the goal is subjective, but everything thereafter is objective. And no, that's not what that word means, but linguistic quibbling aside, you are never going to get everyone agreeing on how to best achieve the goal, even if you could get everyone to agree on the goals in the first place. I don't think that you can. We all come to the table with different preferences and preconceptions, and for people like Matt, although I'm certainly not picking on only him since tons of people do the same thing, he is really looking for people who think just like he does, with the unwarranted assumption that everyone is going to agree with his methodology and with his ideas, because, like the religious, he wants everybody to be just like he is. But that's not how this works. It just isn't.
So that's the main problem with atheism. Their arguments they can't use moral arguments because they can't even prove that morality exists on their worldview.
Oh, it exists. We just made it up. That's how morality actually works. This guy doesn't like it, I'm sure. He wants to think that some magical man in the sky whipped it up and now we just have to do whatever this moral monster wants us to because otherwise we're just going to get our asses whipped. But that's not the reality that we live in. That's really the Christian perspective, isn't it? Do it or else. And then they think that's somehow moral. Yeah, I beg to differ.
Because materialists, most of them are materialists, obviously. You can't get morality from just the physical, because morality is not a physical thing. It's not something that you can look at, you can see in a test tube. But they're materialists. They only believe in the physical.
Because that's the only thing that we have any evidence for. No, morality isn't something that you can study in a test tube. It's a concept that we came up with in our own heads. It is physical, I guess, in the sense that it represents a brain state, but that's about it. Then we can argue over what we can agree is moral and what we can do to encourage and ultimately, often through force of law, enforce that morality that the majority of people agree with. That's actually how things go. But for somebody like this guy, he doesn't like that. It's all entirely emotional. He wants simple, easy to follow instructions that he never has to think about or consider the ramifications of because he really just wants to believe. And I'm sorry, but that's just dumb.
But they believe in morality, and that's not a physical thing, so it's just completely inconsistent.
But it is a physical thing insofar as brain states are physical things. I have plenty of arguments, even with atheists, who want to believe in things that aren't physical, but ultimately everything is, at least on some level. All of your feelings, they're in your head. All of your thoughts, they're in your head. Even your own consciousness, it's just an emergent property from the physical brain. Everything is physical. I've yet to have anyone present one thing that can't be traced back to some physical object, because everything is physical. People just really need to get a grip.
They're stealing a worldview that would only make... They're stealing a theistic worldview while claiming to be just materialists who just, follow the evidence, but they're assuming that morality exists and they can't provide any evidence for that if they're atheists.
Nope. As I just showed, we're doing nothing at all of the sort. Morality, ultimately, is physical, if you're going to consider brain states that way, which I'm going to for the sake of this argument. It's not a thing in and of itself, just like a computer program isn't a thing in and of itself. But the bit that makes it function, the thing that makes it real, that is a physical thing. You just have to get past your fee-fees, which again are just an electrochemical reaction in that 3-pound meat sack in your head, and you have to deal with what is actually going on. And a lot of people are not comfortable with that. Too bad.
So yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem that I see with atheists. They're not honest with themselves. They say we can make up our own meaning, but that's not being honest.
No, you're just being an idiot. This is just, it doesn't appeal to me, so it can't be true. This is insanely common, not just with the religious, but across the spectrum. I'm sorry, but your feelings do not automatically translate into actual reality. Just because you like it, that doesn't make it true. Just because you don't like it, that doesn't make it false. You ultimately mean nothing. This is a really hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but this is still the reality that we all live in.
You should want to be honest with yourself and say, if you're an atheist and you genuinely believe that there is no God, then you should be honest with yourself and say that everything is meaningless if you're genuinely about seeking the truth.
Inherently meaningless? Sure. Meaningless in actuality? No. But this is what happens when someone gets so stuck in their theology that they can't see anything else. They get so emotionally attached to the ideas in their head that they can't understand that those ideas just might not be true. And I've had these discussions with plenty of people, and almost without exception, these people are entirely irrational. This is fee-fees and faith over facts and evidence. They don't care what's actually going on. They don't care about following the evidence to its most logical conclusion. They just really want to believe. And I know I say that a lot, but it's undeniably what they're doing. It's undeniably what a lot of people are doing. But that doesn't make it rational, though. It certainly doesn't make it true. That's the real problem that we face. Most people don't care about demonstrable, verifiable, objective reality. And that's a problem.
Or you could actually follow the evidence and see that there is a God, there is a higher power, there is more to life than just the physical, material existence.
And how do you get there? Not what do you believe, but how do you get there objectively? Because this is something that I ask the religious all the time, and they never have any answers. It starts off with, here's a bunch of stuff that I don't understand, or here's a bunch of stuff I don't like, and then they just leap to, therefore God. Yeah, I'm sorry, but there's a whole lot of steps in the middle there that just seem to be missing. First off, your understanding and your feelings, they are totally irrelevant. Reality is what it is, and you just don't matter. I know a lot of people hate that fact, but it remains a fact nonetheless. Secondly, though, you have to have all those steps in the middle, the ones you're skipping over, and you have to be able to present them to others. God isn't the automatic answer to any question that you might have. Why can't I find my car keys? Oh yeah, God done it. It's really stupid, but try to get a theist to work that whole thing out with you, and it's not going to happen. It's virtually impossible because their religious beliefs have poisoned their rational minds. They just don't care about the truth. They just want to believe.
There is an objective meaning, there is a purpose to life.
Says who, and how do you know it? Please demonstrate how you got to that conclusion rationally. Now, he won't be able to do it because all he did was exercise feelings in his likely childhood indoctrination, which gives him a shortcut to any answer by just invoking his imaginary friend. If he's impressed by that, I don't know what to tell you because it's downright stupid.
And you don't just make up your own meaning. You don't get to just do whatever you want.
Why not? I mean, that's all he's doing after all. That's all any theist has ever done. I really like the idea, therefore God. But that doesn't make it true. He's just declaring, without evidence, that other people can't do all the things that he doesn't like, even though they're doing it in accordance with the evidence because he doesn't like it. And you wonder why I call these people immature children. That is something that you should have given up long ago. Although, I guess in this guy's case, he's barely reached the point of possessing critical thought, and he's doing a really bad job exercising it, but, what do you expect?
That's not how it works, and on an atheistic worldview, that's just not being honest with yourselves. So, you should be honest with yourselves and say, yeah, everything is nihilism if you want to be an atheist.
Dude, you are the one who should be honest with yourself and stop riding the Fifi train everywhere. Try thinking for once, because clearly you're not very good at it. Most of them aren't. They've been brainwashed by their religions to the point that they can't get to a rational conclusion anymore. There is a big chunk of religious bullshit in the way, and they can't figure out how to get around it. All of their potentially rational thoughts bounce off and are replaced with utterly stupid ones. Then they try to tell us that there's something wrong with us. Yeah, stop looking in the mirror. You're just embarrassing yourself.
And you shouldn't use arguments against God using morality if you can't prove morality.
We can. It's very easy, whereas you can't demonstrate a damn thing. You can only assert it. You can only have faith in it. You can only really want it to be true. But that doesn't make it true. You are the one with the problem, not us. We live in the real world. Maybe you ought to give that a shot.
You just can't prove it on an atheist worldview. So yeah, that was pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. So yeah, see you next time.
Yeah, probably not. Now, granted, picking on this kid is probably not particularly fair since he's young and dumb and, yeah. He spent the whole time just nervously rambling at the camera. And I haven't even looked at any of his other videos at this point, so I don't know if that's how he operates all the time or if that was just a one-time thing, but it wasn't very engaging. That's why we write scripts, so we don't have to sound like a kid, which I guess in this case he is, so, yeah. I'm not trying to pick on him, I'm just pointing out how much of what he's saying is just religious programming, and none of it is independent rational thought. I'm sure he just picked up the concepts from other religious videos or articles or people around him, and now he's just parroting it back on his own channel. Maybe he'll improve as he grows up, but you never really know. A lot of professional apologists out there are doing the exact same thing, although I guess for some of them, their screen presence has certainly improved. And then you get to people like Daniel King, and the less said about that, the better. They are not saying anything intelligent or rational or defensible in the real world. They all just really want to believe. But wanting to believe isn't enough. It will never be enough. And so long as that's all these people are doing, they are going to continue to fail. Because that's what they do. So anyway, what did you all think? Nervous or not, did he have any points, or was this just another example of a completely ignorant theist proving their gross ignorance for all the world to see? Let me know what you think down in the comments. There are a few really young theist YouTubers out there, and from my experience at least, a lot of them are like this. It's almost like they're being coached from off screen, but I don't really want to assume anything. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. A lot of the time you can watch them and their eyes will just go off to the side while they're being coached. I didn't necessarily see that here, but, I wasn't paying a lot of attention to it, so, it is what it is. All I can say here is that he had absolutely everything wrong, and demonstrably so. And I don't think he cares. I don't think any of them do. They're just after emotional comfort, not evidential fact, which is really all that matters. These people have something seriously wrong with them. They really do. But they don't want to learn, do they? They just want to believe.